Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show.
I'm always amazed when I have some finance people in my team being able to talk about the business, and when you don't know them, you would think they are from the business. But when you combine that business understanding and their finance skills, that's where they become extremely strong and they can help make the decision.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Strength in the Numbers. Now, you've just heard from Stéphanie Didier, who's currently Senior Director of Treasury at J&J, Johnson & Johnson, following a 20-plus year career performing a number of senior finance roles across many different industries, including pharmaceuticals, beauty, manufacturing, as well as having a number of stints at different international locations. And that's where we actually started, was how Stéphanie decided which roles to take from an international assignment perspective, whilst also having a family and balancing that with her career progression too. Then we get into a conversation around how maybe finance has developed a bit of a boring perception, how we can overcome that, and maybe how bringing in people from different backgrounds, whether they be from a software engineering or app development perspective, or even from an economics background. One example actually of how that turned out to be a great experience for Stéphanie and her team in finance in doing that. Also, Stéphanie helps us deconstruct what business partnering is, 4 key components of it, and share some great practical examples of how we can do that as finance professionals, but also share some techniques that she's picked up for leaders to consider to help their finance teams become better business partners. And we also delve into the importance of saying no in our career, as well as why technology helps finance transformation and helps us become even more critical to the business, enabling us to become more influential and impactful in the work that we do. So look, hope you enjoy this episode. As you probably can guess, I really enjoyed catching up with Stéphanie. And if you want to uncover some more of the key quotes, resources mentioned, as well as ways to connect with Stéphanie, you can find that and more at sitnshow.com. And as always, we really appreciate when you share this show with your friends and colleagues. You can subscribe on all the major platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Music. And thanks again for tuning in today. So that's enough from me. So without further ado, over to Stéphanie and the show. Stéphanie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andrew. Really happy to be with you today.
Yeah, and for our audience who may just be listening in now, you might not be aware of all the technical difficulties we had with this morning. So thank you, Stéphanie, for your patience while we tried to get this podcast started. So before we jump into the main piece, would you mind introducing your background and your journey in accounting and finance, please?
Yeah, sure. So I've been now more than 20 years in finance. And the one thing I can say after these 20 years is I've never been bored, had so many opportunities to learn new things, to make new experiences. So I have no regret about choosing finance. I have at the beginning a pretty standard finance background and started with a PwC. And that was a great experience in external auditing. But I was missing the link with the business and the fact that you are really part of projects and you are really part of a business and you bring value. So that's why I joined Johnson & Johnson 18 years ago now. Wow. And when I count back in these 18 years, I probably had like 10 different positions in different areas, different businesses, different countries. So I lived in Sweden, I worked for the Middle East. So a very fruitful career so far, and looking forward for the next years to come, because I'm sure that will continue to be fruitful and continue to learn new things.
Actually, yeah, I love your positive outlook. What I find fascinating, I have to ask this question, is when you started your career, some sort of 18, 20 years ago, did you come in with like a deliberate strategy that that sort of international exposure was something you wanted? Or was that more something that emerged as you were taking your career? How did you decide which were the right opportunities to pursue and which direction you were hoping to go in?
And that's a very interesting question, Andrew. Talking about my own experience, I always wanted to live abroad with my family at some point because I always felt it could be a great experience professionally and personally. So that's always something I shared with my managers, that I was mobile and that I even wanted to have that opportunity, and that happened at some point. But on the other side of your question, you have some people saying, I want to become a finance director, I want to become a VP in finance, already at the start of their career.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not my case. It really came step by step. So I took a job, I really liked what I was doing, but I thought, I think I can even do the job that is above mine. So that's how I approach my career progression.
Got it. Yeah, because I suppose some people enter the profession because finance and accounting has been around for many thousands of years. You think the career path is fairly well defined, right? So it's completely natural for people to expect to want to progress into those more senior levels. But the reality is, again, it depends on our own circumstances. Is there are so many opportunities. That holistic view you mentioned already, we sort of get that broad view of the business. I think we're very well positioned. So to have a very meaningful career. And then in terms of the right now, here and now, what's exciting you most about your current work?
So what's exciting me most about my current role is to change and transform the organization in finance, because I'm really convinced we are, as you said, so well positioned to have that holistic view of the business and the holistic view of finance and what we can bring. So that's important that we bring that to our business. And we talk a lot about business partnering. That's important for finance. I'm sure you heard that many times.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, just for our audience in the States, it's not like the partnering, limited liability partnerships, whatever we're talking about here. We're talking, we mean partnering in a different essence, don't we?
Absolutely. Just to maybe to make it more concrete is what I call a business partner in finance is someone who will be really the right hand of the managing director, the business unit director, or the marketing manager. So closest stakeholder and the person you work with. And again, I think we are really well positioned to do that because we have that holistic view and at the same time we have an external perspective. And there's one thing that I really appreciate in the finance organization, it's that curiosity that I'm always amazed when I have some finance people in my team being able to talk about the business. And when you don't know them, you would think they are from the business. But when you combine that business understanding and their finance skills, that's where they become extremely strong and they can help make the decision.
Yeah, and I suppose look that is why organizations are put together, right? Is make decisions, make better decisions, and in finance we understand the implications of those decisions on the numbers. How does someone, how do you say, where does someone even start to become a better business partner in your mind?
So I think for me, I would say four key components to become a better business partner. So the first one I already alluded to is curiosity. You need to get outside of your finance data, really understand the external context, understand also what are the priorities for your business, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And piece of advice for the audience is I often get the feedback that, but how am I to, as a finance person, to ask questions about the business? But that's your job and that's what you're expected to do. So don't be afraid to ask questions. The second piece is having your own opinion. What I sometimes see is that finance people who are only the spokesperson about from their business unit director, and they just repeat, so to say, what they heard. But what I'm expecting is a finance person who is saying, I think that when we launch that product, we can achieve that growth, for example. And really often in my team meetings, I ask my team, but what do you think about the business and what we see? And once you have that, I think the third component is to be able to influence. Because you talked about adding value, being part of the decision making, you need to be able to influence that decision making. So, meaning you need to communicate what you think, share your own perspective, and get also the business partner on your side. And when I say influence, I'm not saying that finance is always right and we should be the only one driving the decision, but we need to bring input and value to the business. And that's, I said, four. So the fourth one is test, learn, and adapt. So we talk a lot about agility. For me, that's a bit similar. And I often saw in the past finance project that took a lot of time, a lot of efforts to get to an end product. But when you present that end product to your business partners, actually, that's not what I need, or not now. That was my need 2, 3, 6 months ago. But now the environment has changed. So it's how, as finance people, we are more comfortable like having a project at 50% and we share where we are and we don't get into the nitty-gritty detail to get it 100% right. And eventually you find out that's not, again, what your business partner did. So that's really, for me, the 4 key components to help the organization to become a better business partner. And just to conclude on this one, I think this applies to everyone. So I'm including myself, in these behaviors that need to be developed.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I just feel like it's in some of those things are contrary to the DNA of an accountant and finance professional, because accuracy is something we pride ourselves on. The sort of suggestion is if we're going to test, learn, and adapt, it's suggesting we're never probably going to get the chance to get everything 100% right or 100% finished because things are moving on so quickly. So that's just being pragmatic. So we're having to be pragmatic about our accuracy.
Yeah, and that's a very good question, a very good point you're bringing. Like compliance, you need to be 100% correct.
Yeah.
That you can't be 80%. That's for sure. Like when you produce your financial statement to invest, I mean, you need to be 100% accurate.
So you got the CFO standing up there saying, "Yeah, these numbers are good enough."
Exactly. No, but that's a very good point you're bringing, because we need to know where we can be 80% or even 60, and areas where, I mean, there's no compromise. You need to be 100%.
Yeah, and I think that's what frustrates a lot of people in business as well. It's like, oh, do we really have to do this? Do we need to ask these questions? Do we need to go down this route? Do we need to have a look at this first before we move on? And it's like, well, yeah. But by having that strong foundation, I like what you were saying. It comes to help asking the right questions, because those decisions they're making are really about where they put their attention and energy, where they allocate their resources. So if those questions are about what has to be proven on that assumption, or what are the key assumptions for this to be successful, they're very useful questions a partner might ask or a counsellor might ask to draw out the right answers, the right decisions, make better decisions. But it doesn't mean we're always going to get those decisions right. But we can use the accuracy we've developed over the years to help our business partners make better decisions and therefore feel like we're contributing. And that's why finance is such a great career. Actually, you said earlier on about you've never been bored in your career, right? Because I was thinking, what would be a boring career for me, right? Because I love being in finance. Maybe an astronaut. I couldn't sit up in space in a tube, an aluminium tube, right? Up in space, or an alloy tube. I'd find that really boring. So I put in the phrase boring astronaut into Google and I came up with like 5 million hits. And then I put in boring accountant into Google and I came up with twice as many hits. So like, why do people think that it's so boring? It's such a great chance to be involved in making really great decisions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why that's a bit of shame that we are perceived that way, because when you are an insider, that's absolutely not the case. And that's interesting because what I tried to do in my team in the past is also to bring in some people with very different background. So that was a great experience for them and for us as well. And I remember especially one who was coming more from, I would say, economics or health economics. So he had an appetite for the numbers, but didn't know finance. And he spent almost 2 years with us. And he said at the end, it was such a great experience for him. The fact that we have that holistic perspective and we are really working with the business made a difference. And he said as well, that's not the perception he had at the beginning. So he changed the way he's seeing finance and he became a great advocate for finance in the company.
That's
So,
brilliant.
so
It's a
that's
great
so
idea.
true.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that's a great suggestion. And I suppose as a leader for the leaders listening in, Stephanie, just maybe have any sort of tips on how they can foster this sort of better mindset, better business partnering mindset in their teams.
I think that's one. I mean, you can also like do some swap, get someone from finance outside of finance, closer to the business. The piece of advice is make sure they come back and they don't stay in the
Yeah.
business. A bit similar to this one is you can also encourage shadowing. So it's only like a half a day or a full day from your finance people shadowing another person in the business or even in another part of finance. So that helps broaden your perspective. And I think as well, it's just asking the feedback from your business partners. So where you can improve when they see you are strong and keep that communication flow open and fluid so you can again learn from what they are telling you day to day.
Yeah, there seems to be a key theme there, right? It's communication, talking with people, understanding what they regard as our strengths and where the opportunities might be, right? It's like it being a business within a business. It's a very much a commercial mindset. Are there any other areas leaders could look at from a maybe skills perspective we could perhaps focus on a bit more to bring our finance skills and teams along?
Yeah, and I'm sharing my own experience here. Obviously, I think the what I got also as feedback a couple of years ago is that actually finance was not so much comfortable or didn't know enough about the external environment and the business. So what are our competitors doing, how the market is doing. And that's one important foundation to really support the business. And you may think that's an easy one to ingrain in the organization, but
Mm,
actually you need to make it a routine. How do you bring that those different perspectives
that's
to your
a good
team,
point.
and they get an appetite to learn by themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, I'm sure we all had in our organization people who are really curious, who want to learn, and will even share with you what they found, and some who are more comfortable in their day-to-day and their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it's how you can first build on the one who have that natural curiosity to share with a broader group. So really build on your strong team members. Also encourage your team to take some time also for
Mm.
themselves to look at what's happening externally. And I'm doing that for myself as well. I book some time in my calendar to go through competitive information or topics that are of interest for me. So, how do you develop leadership skills in finance, for example? But I deliberately book some time for that, and I don't accept meetings during this time. And I
Ah,
openly share with my team so they know
yeah.
I do it, that's allowed to do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And second step, I'm expecting them to do it. And the last thing is what I ended up doing as well is have like 15 minutes in the team meetings to share what we learned as a team.
Fantastic. I'm so delighted. There's so much great bits of advice in there. I've got to look forward to pulling that together in the show notes with our team, Stephanie, because this is where do I start? I think on that last point, sharing what we're learning. Fantastic. We can set up team meetings, and I'd encourage our listeners to do that. If leaders set the listening in, set them up. If you're part of a team, just set them up and part of the team. Anyone can set them up, and it's just sharing what you're learning, the external insights. Very important that we reach our side organization. It just gives us a little bit extra. And that could be the difference between making a better decision or one that was just an average decision. And our business partners would really help. And this day and age, we don't have to wait for accounting events to go and talk to our industry peers or just someone else in another part of our business. We use Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all these other communication platforms. It's never been easier.
Yeah.
What might be challenging, and I think it's challenging, is that timepiece. And that comes back to what you're doing, Stephanie, which is, I love that. It's like, yes, we're there to be good business partners, but being a good business partner doesn't mean that we drop what we're doing when our stakeholder contacts us. We need to build our strengths and develop our strengths so we can be a value of service to them into the future. So we need to be disciplined about blocking our time, and where we invest our time is where we'll see the results in the longer term. And I completely agree. So I think great strategy, great application, practical advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's great.
And Andrew, you're bringing a good point as well. Sometimes you have to say no to your business.
Easier said than done. We don't.
I agree.
Finance or support. We're there to support the front lines, right? But
Exactly.
if we don't look after ourselves, there won't be any finance.
Yeah.
I suppose looking into the future, I think we were talking off air about technology. Just any sort of thoughts to share with our audience about how they should view these new technologies that are coming to supplement the skills we've learned traditionally?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Andrew. So I'm very passionate about the technology transformation that we are seeing in finance. And I really believe that's going to make us even more critical as a function to the business. So I want to deliver a positive message here. I know it's a big change because some of our tasks will be done automatically through the technology. But when you really think about it, it's more routine task with much less value add to what we can bring. So the way I see it's really going to free up some time, so you can spend more time on value added tasks. And that's why I think it's even more important to develop the skills we just talked about that will help everyone in finance to leverage the technology and use the technology for your purpose. So again, I think it's a very positive message I want to deliver here.
Yeah, and by the way, that time that gets freed up, one, it's nice to learn the skills and find the applications, because a lot of our finance processes are really if, then, do that. So could be very much programmatic and taken away, and it frees up time. And I think the important thing is for people not to identify themselves and their strengths with their roles, is to separate the role. That's just an element of the role that's just been made easier to do. Allows you then to bring your other strengths, and then whether that's talking with people external to the business, or if that's spending more time with business partners or investing in yourself, there's great opportunities there to improve what we're getting out of our careers and the impact we're making for our businesses and organizations. So again, I'm with you, Stephanie. I think it's a very positive development. In terms of yourself, you've given us great advice. What's been the best bit of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received is, I remember many years ago now, a feedback session from my managing director. And he told me, you need to be more vocal in meetings. You need to express your perspective, share your opinion, and was really clear as well that's how I can bring value. And that will be important also for me if I want to progress in my career. And said this way, that seems obvious. And that was obvious. And to be honest with you, I knew that's something I needed to work on. But the message I want to deliver here is too often people don't give you that direct feedback. So they shy away from saying what's not that positive, what you need to work on. But I think it's really a missed opportunity because You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know that's really something that you need to unlock and work on, of course, you will not work on. So it's not so much about the content, but the fact about giving honest and transparent feedback.
I think that's great. And again, this is why we do the strength in the numbers, is to share these great bits of advice. And hopefully our audience can share that with each other as well. And by the way, one of my favorite sayings, we don't know what we don't know. Keep us humble. And like, again, it comes back to that point. It's like, I know earlier in my career, I just felt under pressure to know everything, know what was going on, know the numbers inside out, know where we were going, know what the history was. Sure, that's not realistic. There's loads of stuff we don't know.
Yeah.
So, great advice, Stephanie. And I suppose one of my favorite questions on the show is in terms of yourself, when you're looking for resources to learn from, are there any sort of favorite resources, books, documentaries, or anything like that you might recommend our audience go check out?
Oh yeah, I read very interesting books like maybe 1 year ago on leadership skills, and that's the one called Radical Candor from Kim Scott. So you know it?
Yes, I. It's a good recommendation. Well, why did you choose that one to share?
So that one, because that comes back to my previous point on giving feedback and being honest and transparent. And in that book, for the ones who didn't read, I really encourage you to read. I will not reveal what's in it. But basically, it's by being honest and transparent, you build a stronger relationship with your team, with your boss, with everyone who is surrounding you. And once you get that honest and transparent feedback, you can become a better leader, and you can help your team develop, and that makes you stronger as a person and as a professional. Yeah,
Definitely.
and I think also when you progress in your career, I feel it may be sometimes a bit more tricky to get honest and transparent feedback from your team or from your peers. So that's really very concrete books with nice advice on how to get this honest and transparent feedback. So I recommend to the audience reading it. I can tell you I recommend it to my team, some of my peers to read it as well. So I really enjoyed reading the book.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I completely support your recommendation. I think it's great, and I just hope more of us have those honest and transparent conversations. Because look, again, earlier in my career, I didn't feel like I had the confidence to do that. It was something I developed as a leader, and actually, when I found it actually works really well, I find as you get more senior, sometimes you might think, actually, it's really, how do I say get this message across without upsetting the CEO or the CFO or whatever? So, well, just be honest and transparent. Yeah, you can come with positive intent and whatever, and like sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. But people will appreciate that you just call it as it is, and your heart's in a good place.
Yeah,
So not
absolutely.
like great advice. Well, we're still carrying on anyway. Hasn't hurt us too much. So thanks, Stephanie, for that. And I suppose if our audience wish to continue the conversation, where's the best place to connect with you at?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn. So happy to connect and build further conversation on this one.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. So we'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes as well. And before we wrap up, look, just again, thank you so much for sharing some great points. We covered a load of different topics as well, from business partnering all the way through to technology, and also transparent and honest feedback there. Is there any other parting thoughts you might have for our audience before we wrap up?
So I think the last piece of thought I would like to share is again a really positive message. I'm really excited about being in finance today. I appreciate a lot going on in finance. So the piece of advice I would give is don't hesitate to get outside of your comfort zone. That's really where you're going to learn, expand your knowledge, your network. And even if it's tough at the beginning, I'm not saying it's easy, it's tough, but I'm sure you will not regret it.
And sure, since when was anything that was ever easy? You know, we're doing it's the tough ones we remember the most and
Mm,
get most fun from, right? So
absolutely. Absolutely.
so what a great way to end the show. So Stephanie, thanks for being such a great guest mentor and strengthening the numbers today.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. It was a pleasure talking to you.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter, which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding, and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me and we can connect. And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. When all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities, and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.